going to be here is here. Today's public hearing by the local planning agency being held to review zoning requests, land use plan amendment requests, and other items relative to the county's planning and growth management program. The local planning agency is an independent advisory board charged with reviewing and making recommendations to the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners on the cases to be heard today. The Board of County Commissioners will make the final decision on each case at a separate public hearing currently scheduled to be held on May 21st, 2024 at 6 p.m. Any cases needing two hearings will be announced. For each case heard today, staff will make a brief presentation of 20 minutes. The applicant will present his or her case also for 20 minutes. We'll then hear from proponents, 3 minutes each, unless representing a group of 5 or more, which in that case, they get 10. Non-speakers must be present and waive their time. Then from the opponents, 3 minutes each, unless representing a group of 5 or more, and they would get 10 minutes. Non-speakers must be present and waive their time. And then the applicant will be given an opportunity to close, answer questions, or respond to any concerns raised by the opponents or proponents for 5 minutes. Before your presentation, please give your name and address for the record.
Oh, way down.
All testimony needs to be under oath, so if you have not been sworn in already and you plan to testify, please rise now and be sworn. Also, please fill out the slip on the table and present it to the clerk before you speak. There will not be continuing rebuttals, so please try to present all information and concerns while you're at the podium. If you plan to provide letters, written comments, studies, or other documents in response to the LPA's findings and recommendations, those must be received in the Planning Department 15 days prior to the Board of County Commissioners meeting in order to be included with the record that will be transmitted to the Board of County Commissioners. And with that, we'll move to the first item on the agenda. Has everyone I guess we call the order and has reviewed the minutes, vote on the minutes? Is there a motion to?
Move approval of the February 14, 2024 LPA meeting minutes.
Second.
And the minutes are approved. And we will now hear from the county attorney.
There's no need for a quasi-judicial statement today, as we don't have any quasi-judicial items on
Okay.
the agenda, just one legislative item.
I guess we've already taken care of the minutes. So with that, we will move on to the,
Did we vote on the minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't hear it. So.
and we will now move on to the following item, the proposed ordinance amending the Pinellas County Land Development Code.
Hi, good morning. This is an amendment to our land development code that's covering accessory dwelling units, which is in Chapter 138, our zoning. Glenn Bailey from Planning is here. He's going to present and go over the proposed changes.
All right. Good morning, Board. Good to see you
Morning.
again. Glenn Bailey, Planning Division Manager and Interim Director of Housing and Community Development Department. So this is an amendment for the accessory dwelling units section of the zoning code, land development code. covers only Chapter 138 in zoning. There's 4 different sections it's changing. Section 138.1, the definitions of rules of constructions. 138.3-6, uses defined. 138.32.10, that's the specific use standards for accessory dwelling units. And also Table 138.602A, which is motor vehicle parking stall quantity standards. We're changing that just a little bit for ADUs, accessory dwelling units, ADUs. So what is an accessory dwelling unit? It's a smaller independent dwelling unit on the same lot as a primary single-family detached home. They contain their own kitchen, bathroom, and sleeping area. Sometimes they're called garage apartments, in-law apartments, granny flats, carriage houses, backyard cottages, guest houses, etc. So they're named various things, but for our code purposes, they're accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. They can be attached to the primary home, be separated, but attached, separated in its facilities. Its own separate, again, kitchen, bathroom, and sleeping area, or it can be detached or unconnected in a separate building on the same property as a single-family detached primary home. The ADUs provide options for affordable housing, provide options for extended family, multi-generational living arrangements. So we're seeing that more and more. We want grandparents come in and live, or cousins or brothers, sisters, whatever. It's also going to be an income source for the property owner. So the ADU can be rented out, either long-term or short-term rentals, since we don't have the ability to regulate short-term rentals in such a way that would preclude that. That's per state law. So accessory dwelling units have been allowed in unincorporated Pinellas County for many years. It's been in the code for decades. There was a major code update in 2019 that provided increased flexibility for them, among increased flexibilities for the majority of the rest of the code as well. The intent of the current code amendment proposal is to further enhance their flexibility, to provide additional clarification and incentives, and importantly, to provide increased opportunities for new ADUs and overall housing options that can be more affordable. So it's part of our affordability component of code changes. You'll see more of those in the months ahead, broader code changes regarding affordable housing, but for right now, we've got this one piece for ADUs specifically. The current ADU allowances in the code, again, they're accessory to a single-family detached home in residential zones. Also, in non-residential zones, they can be accessory to a business, and that be a caretaker, security manager, etc. It's 1 per lot or parcel. The maximum size is 750 square feet. It's exempt from density calculations and parking requirements. That's consistent with the countywide rules. They could have separate metered utility connections if they so desire. The old code required them to be the same, but now you can have separate connections for the ADU apart from your primary home. Mobile homes and RVs can't be ADUs per code. However, tiny homes can be, as long as they meet the building code. They also must meet dimensional requirements of the zoning district, just like the primary home would, meaning setbacks, height, et cetera, things like that. And either the primary home or the ADU must be owner-occupied. That's an important consideration because, at least anecdotally, it means that you could tamp down some of the perceived negative effects of short-term rentals if you have the owner on site, either in the ADU or in the primary home, because the owner's not going to want, normally, a lot of partying and noise going on. So. Proposed changes, the highlights, is increasing the maximum ADU size from 750 square feet to 1,000 square feet. There's an exception for locations within the coastal storm area and other flood hazard areas, which will remain 750 square feet. That helps eliminate the potential for more larger populations within these areas where you might need to evacuate. Clarifying that garages and storage space serving the ADU is calculated as part of its size. There was the code wasn't very clear in that, so we're clarifying that if you have, an ADU, detached ADU in particular, that has a garage attached to it that serves that ADU, it's included in the calculation of the overall ADU size. And before that, it was just basically a staff interpretation, so this makes it codified. It's allowing for staff level review for larger sizes up to 20% over maximum. That's basically allowing staff to go in like you would in setbacks now, which basically you can go up to 20% higher. So if you have 750 square or 1,000 square foot, you can go to staff and ask for additional square footage if they meet certain criteria. But where before, even if you want 1 square foot over, you'd have to go to the Board of Adjustment for a variance. So this allows more flexibility for staff to review these smaller adjustments. It's waiving the owner-occupied requirement for affordable housing purposes. As I mentioned, one or the other has to be owner-occupied. If they're affordable at 80% or below median family income and under a 20-year land use restrictive agreement, and then both can be rented out. This allows, basically nonprofits that nonprofit affordable housing companies to buy these properties and rent both of them out, but they can't be used for short-term rentals, or one or the other would have to be owner-occupied. Clarifying in the code, this wasn't clear either, that to qualify as an ADU, it must have an entrance separate from the primary dwelling unit. Whether it's attached to the primary, it's got to have a separate entrance. It's got to have its own sleeping quarters, its own bathroom, and a full kitchen with sink, cooking unit, and refrigerator. Further clarifying the ADUs are exempt from parking requirements. The code exempts them now, but it's located in a different portion of the code. It's not in the actual ADU specific use standards component. It's in the parking table, and it's that parking table I mentioned earlier that basically, in a kind of a compromise with the staff, I was worried about the larger the ADU you have, the more parking it's going to require, that anything over 750 square feet, any ADU over 750 square feet will require at least one off-street parking space. So eliminate the potential for additional cars that are parking along the streets. It's also waiving of applicable development review fees for ADUs, permitting, things like that. And this is a pretty important, allowing a single-family home a second kitchen under certain conditions. Right now, we only allow one kitchen per single-family detached or attached home. Those conditions are one has to have one primary entrance, so it wouldn't qualify as an ADU if there's only one primary entrance. An ADU has to have its own separate entrance, one address, and no separate meter utility connections. So essentially, functions as one home with two kitchens. And that would provide flexibility for extended or generational family living arrangements. Maybe the grandparents, somebody wants to have part of the house, and they can have their own kitchen and sleeping area, of course, and bathrooms. But there's, again, one primary entrance, so it's not operating as an ADU. If the conditions are not met, the second kitchen would only be allowed as part of an ADU or a duplex if the zoning district allowed a duplex. The Board of Adjustment has seen a couple of these attached ADUs recently, and it's given them issues because if you put a lot of times they might want to put a second story on the house. Well, it's a lot larger than 750 square feet in a lot of cases. So they're having trouble basically justifying the hardships and things like that. But there was no intent for it to be rented out or anything to those lines. So this would allow them to do this multi-generational family living arrangement without having to go through that process of a variance for an ADU or something like that. Also clarifying that multifamily dwelling units on a single parcel can be either detached or attached to each other. Right now, the code reads that they have to be attached to each other. But this would allow detached, like cottage-style tiny home rental developments on one parcel, so they don't have to be attached anymore. Could still be considered multifamily, but they could be separated per the requirements of the fire code and things like that. So this would provide opportunities for more affordable rentals, rental situations. So recommendations, proposed amendments, they were reviewed by both internal and external stakeholders. Internal was various departments within the county, external stakeholders with the development, the DCAG development. What do the DCAG stand for? I can't remember. Anyway, it's development communities reviewed these. It was vetted by Fort Pinellas for consistency with the countywide rules, or consistent with the countywide rules, and it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. The Development Review Committee recommended approval, and this would go to the Board of County Commissioners. 2 required hearings because of the land development code amendment. The first one is scheduled for May 21st at 6 p.m. So, concludes my presentation. If you have any questions.
One question. I understand the separate entrance for the ADU. If the ADU is attached to a single-family dwelling, is there an allowance for an internal connection, a door?
It wouldn't preclude that.
Okay.
No.
I had a question on the, how do you define cooking unit?
That's left for interpretation of the
Okay,
code. It's
that's what I
how a
assumed.
dwelling unit is defined. It said cooking unit, so this makes it consistent with how it's defined now. So it would be up to the interpretation of the Building and Development Review Services Director.
Okay. Thank you.
Glenn, what's the, do you know what the other municipalities in Pinellas County, what do they allow as far as ADUs?
St. Petersburg allows 800 square feet. A couple others allow 800 square feet. Some of the others are smaller. None of them allow up to 1,000. But the county is different in the fact that we have a lot more larger lots than the municipalities do in places like Eastlake or other places where, you know, the average lot size in the county is larger than the ones in a lot of the municipalities like St. Petersburg. So it could provide more, basically a wider range of potential, because we have a wider range of lot sizes.
But we still do have quite a few 50-foot wide lots in different
Right.
parts. Okay.
Yeah, they would have to scale it down, obviously. Because it still would have to fit within setbacks and green space standards, things like that still would apply, so.
And this in no way affects any accessory utility shed permitting at all? They can still have utility
They're
sheds?
looked, yeah, they're looked separately in the code.
And they can still, and now they'll be able to have up to 1,000 square foot, and that's the proposal.
Right.
What kind of has this been notified to the homeowners associations in the county? This-
No more than any other ordinance would be. Of course, deed restrictions a lot of times prevent ADUs, so this would not change any, you know, restrictions of any private deed restrictions. So
So how is this advertised, this change to the code?
it's advertised in the newspaper as
Newspaper.
required by.
Okay. But as far as individual mailings to homeowners associations, nothing?
No, since it didn't pertain to any specific properties, it's basically countywide. It's a typical process we use.
Was it presented at Lealman?
And it was presented in
Yeah.
Lillman Community, CAC,
Yeah, their community.
Citizens
Citizen
Advisory Committee,
Okay.
yes. Because Lillman's very interested in more allowances for ADUs. A lot of people in Lillman are.
Yeah, we had a citizen from Lealman attended the DRC meeting and asked questions on it, and it was specifically that, and it was then presented at the Lealman Advisory Committee.
Question about the ability to waive the owner occupancy piece and the land use restriction agreement for affordable properties. You mentioned nonprofits and perhaps other businesses. Individuals could do that as well. Individual property owners could do that as well. They just have to go through a process to get that
Go
approved.
through the process, correct.
All right.
Yes. So it would have to be affordable at 80% or below median family income for 20 years. So it would be, you know, in place for a long time.
And generally, what's the process for that? If somebody wanted to do that, where do they begin with that?
They would go with a community development division in my department and start that way,
Got it.
as with any affordable housing,
Okay.
density bonus or anything like that. Or it could start with zoning questions in the zoning.
Yeah, usually they
section.
come to zoning first, and we'd review them over and work with community development, and either they have their requirements that they work through to then certify if it's an affordable housing development, and, you know, they certify it, and with this land use restrictive agreement, you know, they'd be reviewing that as well. We'd also work with county attorney's office to make sure it's, you know, everything's correct on that.
So there's been a question about, from a member about, you know, if you don't agree with the proposal.
Yeah, when do I say that at this point in the hearing?
So when the Q&A is done with staff, and then they would ask if there's anyone in the public who wishes to speak, and then it brings it back to the board. And if you wish to make a motion
At that
in
point?
that regard, that's when you would make it.
Okay.
Is there provisions for, or is there anticipation that there's going to be enforcement issues or growth in enforcement issues with some of the expansion that this allows? And is the county planning for the cost of enforcement?
I would not anticipate a large increase in that. You still have, I mean, ADUs are expensive. It's expensive to build. You have deed restrictions in a lot of these developments and would not allow them anyway. And A lot, like John said, a lot of the lot sizes are so small, like my lot, there's no way I can put an ADU unless I built up. It's just not gonna be a proliferation of ADUs, even though we're increasing the flexibility, it's not foreseen.
Got it.
They would have to be permitted. They would come in, they'd get looked at by zoning to make sure they're meeting setbacks. Lot area, green space coverage is still open. And again, they'd have to go through the proper building permits. We rarely, I remember a few that we've had that were, built without permits and, had to come in subsequent afterward and get it done. But yeah, code enforcement would handle that, and we have not heard from code enforcement that this is going to cause any major issues with them.
Thanks.
You mentioned tiny homes, and I think containers were mentioned in here as well. So that still restricts to just one ADU per parcel, correct? That's
Correct.
no
For
matter what size that
single-family
is?
detached parcel, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Tiny homes would have to meet Florida building code, so they couldn't be mobile. They'd have to be fixed in place.
Right.
So if your conclusions, if your questions to staff are concluded, then you would go to the public and ask if anyone wishes to speak on the item. Then it would come back to, if there are none, or if someone does speak and that concludes, you can bring it back to the board for discussion, motions, votes, the usual. But yeah, we do need to call the room and online to make sure, to the extent it is.
At this time, are there any proponents that are present or online that wish to speak?
No members online.
And at this time, are there any opponents present or online wishing to speak?
Still no members online.
Then, are there any other questions for staff or?
I think at this point, you're bringing it back to the board for discussion and possible motions and votes.
Anything to be brought back to the board for further discussion?
Yeah. So you're closing the public, what you're doing now is you're closing the public hearing and having board discussion.
Then at this time,
Public, so it's.
is there
It's not-
a motion to approve LDR 24-01?
I make a motion to deny the request for 1,000 square feet and to leave it at 750 square feet because I believe that it's excessive. Other municipalities have shown that there's not a need to go to that extent. I think that going to 1,000 could overbuild a lot. Not all lots are big. Also, I believe that the public, surrounding property owners in a neighborhood, I believe, should be notified if somebody wants to have an increase in an accessory dwelling unit size over at 750. And I think this would take that ability away from adjacent property owners. I think that they should be involved. And I just think that, I just don't see a basis to increase it to 1,000 square feet when a large municipality like St. Pete, for example, is at 800, Clearwater's at 750. I don't see the need for it, to be honest with you. That's why my recommendation is coming for denial of the 1,000 square feet.
I think if I understand the proposal correctly, 1,000 square foot ADU would require one parking space or one parking unit, which would be a garage possibly, which would probably reduce the 1,000 to at least 800 because of a 10 by 20 parking space or garage. So effectively, it may not allow more than 800 as it is. The 750 and below does not require a parking space, but anything over 750 does.
Can you, thanks, Mr. Bailey, can you tell us why the increase was approved in your deliberations or your?
It was recommended by our consultant So I was looking at the affordable housing component of the code in its totality, but this was separated out from that to fast track this portion of it. It was recommended by them. And again, we have a larger lot sizes than a lot of the municipalities in the county do. We have 5-acre lots up in East Lake, so it makes more sense to allow something larger in those areas. If you have a property that's smaller, likely it's not going to fit within setbacks. It's not going to meet the required green space areas, so they couldn't do 1,000 square feet anyway. You can't vary impervious surface ratio. You cannot vary that, so they'd have to meet those standards. Also, it's in the code now that a detached ADU cannot be taller than the primary. So they can't build up higher. I forgot to mention that. I failed to mention that. So that safeguard is in there. So even if the code allows up to 35 feet, if the primary is at 20, you can't go over 20. So it would keep that, in mind there. Also, again, the code is silent in what counts as 750 square feet today. The addition that basically says, let's see, where is that one? Clarifying the second one down, clarifying the garages and storage space serving the ADU is calculated as part of its size. Right now, the code is silent on that. Historical staff has interpreted that only conditioned space counts. So right now, you would have any storage space or garage serving the ADU would not count toward its size. So, and this change would make it count toward its size. So there's a lot of safeguards in here. It's beyond just allowing more square footage.
So when you say that the ADU cannot be taller than the primary,
Correct.
but if there's a garage and they want to build a garage apartment, that would be higher than the primary. How does that?
They couldn't do it.
They couldn't do it.
No. They have to meet setbacks, so standard setbacks, same setbacks apply to the primary home as it would the ADU. I mean, they have to meet all the regulations. So,
Glenn, is a ADU exempt from having a detached garage, utility structure? Or does it have to be oriented for the main structure, for the main unit?
utility structure would just be counted like you normally would. You can have up to 2, but it would be primarily, it would be serving, unless I've never seen a detached utility structure serve an ADU specifically. It would be, the code would look at it as serving the primary, and you can have up to 2.
So it runs with the property, so you couldn't say 2 for the primary house, 2 for the
No, you couldn't do
ADU.
that.
It's for the whole
So
property.
two on the whole lot.
Correct. And they're limited in their size as well. They got to meet certain setbacks, or they have to have a 6-foot-high fence.
So if the ADU didn't want a garage, they could have an accessory structure to put their belongings in,
They could,
and that wouldn't count towards the ADU.
unless it's still serving the ADU, then it would count.
How are you going to enforce that?
Through permitting, that's all you can do.
That's the problem I see. I just see overdevelopment of these properties. With an ADU of 1,000 square feet, you could say, well, I'm going to have an accessory structure to put my stuff in. It's not going to count towards it's not like a garage attached. But that's just the issue I have. I just see overdevelopment of the residential lots, especially with 1,000 square feet. And you're allowed 2 accessory structures on a lot. And if it's 1,000 square feet, now you got to provide a parking space. It's not necessarily going to go in a garage.
Oh,
It could be on the property, outside, in front of the lot.
again, the green space requirements would not allow
True.
overdevelopment.
True, that's going
You
to
have to have
regulate
at
it.
least 25% green space on certain properties, and out higher than that on others. So,
That's just the issue that I
Yeah.
have. I understand, and I commend staff for trying to get the affordable housing part of it, I understand that. But I just see too much overdevelopment of the lot and not enough public involvement when these structures could have an impact, the way the neighborhood looks or things like that. So those are my concerns.
On those properties that have no owner occupant present, is there any sort of property management oversight that's required? Anything that would be in place to keep those properties from,
it's
not
my
becoming what
understanding
they are?
they do check in on an annual basis. to make sure those things are being held the right way, handled the right way, yes. If they're found not to be, then they can be revoked.
I do have to say that I think enforcement of this would be very difficult
Right.
just because of, you know, just the variety of places these can be constructed and so on, and
We don't see enforcement being any more difficult than it would be today. It's not making that many changes. Because they're allowed everywhere today at 750 square feet, so.
and you
I
don't
will
think the larger size would increase the, you know, the potential for more?
I don't think so, no. I don't see that. There are other, while there's none in the county, there are other places in the state that allow more larger than 1,000 square feet. I believe, like Gainesville allows up to 1,700 square feet. It's a wide range,
1,700?
something like that. Osceola County is another one that allows more. And several, you know, it just depends on where you are.
Sure. And so you mentioned that there aren't a lot of places in the county right now where that 1,000 square feet
In
may
the
be.
county. Right. Well, in the 800 square feet's the limit in St. Petersburg, and that's the highest of any other.
I mean, unincorporated, you mentioned there's some areas up in Palm Harbor, I guess. But most of the lots in the rest of the county are smaller or too small for the 1,000? Is that what I'm hearing or not?
A lot of them are too small for ADUs at all.
Uh-huh.
As far as detached ADUs, they can have attached and build up. But we're talking about 250 square feet. It's not that big of a difference in terms of being able to fit a lot. I mean, again, it's got to meet setbacks. It's got to meet the green space criteria.
Right.
So it's got safeguard. Can't be taller than the primary if it's detached. It's got to have an off-street parking space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can't
right-
be in
right
the
now
coastal
it
high
can-
hazard area.
Right now, it can be tall, or if you have a, you know, one-story house, at most of our residential districts, the maximum height's 35 feet. Under today's code, you could build a two-story ADU, so you could have your garage, and then the 750 up top, and then that's
That's why I asked that
higher than
question, because
everything else. And one of the proposals in this is to keep it at that same level as the rest of the houses around.
yeah, I think because many of them in St. Petersburg are garage apartments that have gone higher than the primary, and so that's why I asked the question. But this would restrict it just to the same level as the primary.
Yeah, and the deliberations with different departments, that change was put it in there because it concerns the parking, increased parking requirement, where right now none of them require parking. And also that where it's does not allow larger lot size or ADU sizes in coastal storm area or flood hazard areas. So
Sure, that's good.
it has been scaled back based on departmental discussions.
What kind of public input, has there been any public input on this? Has there been any specific areas where the public might have concerns about this that haven't already been addressed?
Like I said, we mentioned it to the Lellman CAC, when a lot of feedback we got in Lellman is they want more than this would allow. They want to have multiple ADUs per lot. So in some cases, this doesn't go far enough for some people. That's the only feedback I've heard.
Okay.
We have had, over the years, there's been an increase in requests that have gone to the Board of Adjustments for larger ADUs on these larger properties that are for, you know, multi-generational is what we've seen. People they buy a big property, they have a house, they want to put another house for their parents on there, and they've come in and requested larger. We had one recently that was approved, was almost 1,400 square feet, and the Board of Adjustments approved it because of the size of the lot.
The lot didn't have to be subdivided or anything like that, it just was approved?
It was approved for that. They still have to, again, meet all the setback requirements, open space, but it was almost a 3-acre property, so it was a bigger property, so having, you know, a larger house on there doesn't, or a larger ADU, really is not intrusive upon the neighbors in that case. And that's where we would expect to see these larger ones, is that's what's been coming forward to the board. We have not had requests for larger ones that have been approved that are on smaller lot sizes. they've been these larger lots.
Yeah, we've had a couple in East Lake Woodlands where they don't allow detached ADUs. They have to be attached, and then we have that size issues where it's just for their parents, they want to move in. And a lot of times, a variance for a larger than 750 is driven by, they have elderly parents that need a larger space for their wheelchairs and mobility. And so they need larger bathrooms, they need larger, hallways, and that triggers the larger requirement. Larger need, the need for larger than 750 square feet. We've seen that many times, multiple times, in the recent past. So-
Excuse me, I have a question about rental frequency. So is the ADU governed by the same rental frequency as the primary?
So the rental, it would be, you could rent the ADU either on a long-term basis, month to month, whatever, or you could rent it as a short-term rental, because the state does not allow us to
To
regulate
restrict,
those.
right?
But one or the other has to be owner-occupied. So you can't have this big company come in here buying it and renting both out. That's not, if it's not affordable, meets those criteria for affordable housing, then they cannot do that. Some of the municipalities do not have that provision.
What would be the difference between an attached ADU and a duplex
The size limitation,
size? That's basically the only change?
correct.
So, sorry, but on the rental frequency again, so if a primary is in a neighborhood that has pre-2011 restrictions for a minimum or maximum 90-day, minimum 90-day rental, the ADU would not be subject to that same restriction?
We don't have any pre-2011 standards.
I'm talking about if it's in the municipality that has that restriction.
No, these would not apply to any municipality, so.
Just strictly, okay.
Right, it's
I
only
just wanted to
unincorporated
clarify.
areas.
Okay. Perfect.
So if there's no further questions for Glenn or Michael, you do have a motion on the table, as I understand it. There was a motion made I don't know, was it for approval with a condition that the recommendation would be to adjust it down to 750 from 1,000? Was that, I'm not sure, okay. That motion would need to be dealt with, or either, there hasn't been a second yet, in my knowledge.
So how is the motion of denial handled?
Well, it can either fail for lack of a second, or if there's a second, then it'll be voted on, and it'll go forward or not.
Then I call for a vote on the motion.
There hasn't been a second.
Someone
yeah.
seconded it.
Yeah, there hasn't, so there is a motion on the table that hasn't been seconded, so you call for a second.
Is
and
there a
if no one
second
seconds the
or
motion.
motion to deny?
So then the motion would fail for lack of a second. And then you'd call for if there are any additional motions anyone wishes to make.
I'm sorry that I'm having a little difficulty hearing what you're saying.
Sorry, I can get the microphone closer to me. So it appears that the motion, and I'm trying to stay in my lane too, it appears that the motion has died for lack of a second. So you would note that the motion has died for lack of a second, then say, does anyone else wish to make a motion?
The motion to deny has not moved forward. Are there any other motions at this time?
So I'd move that we adopt the staff recommendation and approve the, LDR 2401.
A second.
You say all in favor, just call for.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against?
Aye.
Motion carries. At this time, that concludes today's meeting.
We've disposed of the minutes. I don't know of any other business. I don't know if staff has any additional business for the board or any announcements or anything.
No additional business or announcements
You can
from staff.
adjourn the meeting.
That concludes today's meeting.
All right.
Would